So to sum it up, I think, it's really, really important from a values perspective or personality perspective to have an understanding of the investors that you're looking at potentially getting invested from and understanding their portfolio. Do some research. What are the other companies that they've invested in? Are those companies aligned with what you're doing? Are they competitors? That can also be a good thing sometimes. If you don't know anything about the investor, talk to founders that they've invested in to get some feedback about those investors and what they're like and what it's like to have a relationship, an ongoing 5 to 7 year relationship with that investor. So thank you so much for those insights. And I think the next question is really, what do you wish that you knew before you started fundraising? And, what advice would you give other entrepreneurs about going into fundraising for the first time? Why don't we start with Yulia? Yeah, great question. So first thing I'm thinking about is be really prepared with the next steps. Like if you're doing the outreach to investors today, we should expect that they might ask the access for the data room the next day. So, and if you're like, yeah, you know what, I will get back to you in a couple of weeks when my data room is ready, it's not professional. We want to be professional in the space, right? So we're fundraising. So make sure that you have everything that you will need. Your data room is ready. You have a few versions of the pitch decks. Let's say you can fundraise. You can collect smaller checks from the business angels. So you have one deck, and another one is for the equity round with other numbers, right? At the same time, you might have the deck for the funds who have great expertise in your domain, and you might want to highlight this in your deck. So be ready to have a few versions of the deck. Be ready with the data room. Make sure that all your co-founders, you have co-founders, pitch the same story, and you have all the data, all this. They use the same story. They use the same data, the same figures. That's extremely important. What else? Be sure that you have enough runway with the current financial situation, because the lack of funding is the most common thing when the startups are forced to die because of just financial mismanagement. And just keep in mind that it will take way more time that we all think about it today. So we can have estimation on our mind that we will fundraise in, let's say, 4 months. Be sure that it will take longer. Just make sure that you have enough capacity for that, enough funding, enough resources. That's from my side.
I'd also add that I think fundraising has changed a lot in the early stage, where before it was like, you're going to go out, you're going to raise a pre-seed, and it's going to be a tight 4-month process, and the deal will close. And now we're kind of like, I don't know, you got a bit of money from angels, and then you got a little grant, then you have one incubator write you a check, and you can kind of stitch together around at the early days. And I think being open to that is just like really should be realistic for your expectations right now. Because it also can, I think when we try to run a really tight process for our actual pre-seed, like we did an angel round in 2023, because we were like trying to raise, wasn't really working. We pulled together a little bit of angel money. That was enough to get that way. And then we went and did a pre-seed a few months ago. And we almost went in the other way, where we set how much we wanted to raise, and all the investors were dragging their feet. And then, as I said, that one US company came in and just like wrote a big check, and then our round was almost full. And then suddenly all these investors were coming back to us at the opposite problem of like, why didn't you leave me space, blah, blah, blah. And so then we had to overextend how much we wanted to raise. And so I think that the structure that used to exist in fundraising is a lot more fluid now. If people want to give you money, take it, and make sure that it's someone that you're aligned with. But otherwise, like, don't be too worried about having it fit into a tight little steering box.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that was shared. And we had a similar experience kind of in the reverse, where we closed some VC money, and then I don't know if you guys remember, in the summer of 2022, the market kind of crashed and people were not deploying, but they weren't saying that. And so we ended up trying to raise more on top of that and have a lot of conversations. We were not able to raise from VCs. Took a while. And then we were able to raise from some angels in a similar way. So I totally agree with that. I think it was the same
I don't know who came up with this, but one of my favorite mentors in this space, Ibosa Obano from the Black Founders Network, he says it a lot, which is, when you ask for money, you'll probably get advice. But when you ask for advice, you might get money. And the idea behind this is that, and much to what Yulia and Suze were saying about process being long and about relationship building, is you really do want to start a relationship with an investor by asking for advice for a number of reasons. One, yes, we know this process is going to be long and you should be vetting that. This is kind of your way to start identifying and evaluating whether they're a good fit for you. But secondly, on their end, when you start a conversation with, I need money, they don't really want to continue the conversation, right? So you should never really try to start raising capital when you're desperate for capital. It does take a really long time, usually way longer than you anticipate. And part of it is because of building that relationship. Part of it is because we're in Canada. That's just the ethos for our capital here. But yeah, I think it's really important to try to build a relationship first and not just go straight for the money. And that's something that we had to learn the really, really rough way, because in what we were raising, it was just at that time when things were starting to change in the way that Suze identified, where in 2021, you could raise a huge amount from, we saw, and mainly these were founders on like Twitter and stuff, talking about how they were, pre-product, just an idea, raised off a deck. Those days ended, and we weren't really aware that that had happened. And so we wanted capital because we had been bootstrapping for so long. We felt desperate for the capital, and that capital dried up. And it did take a really long time to be able to raise more. In addition to that, what I wish I had known just about pitching generally is that, a pitch is the start of a conversation. It is not a full conversation. And so you should actually keep your pitches very light touch. You should intentionally not answer every question. I would always try to anticipate, all the different questions so that it doesn't seem like my pitch has, holes. But actually, you can use that to your advantage. When you leave things unanswered, you can kind of suss out whether the person receiving that pitch is paying attention, whether they care, whether they know enough to ask good questions. Right? So don't feel like you need to answer every question and then have your pitch drag out for like 5 minutes. And in addition to that, your pitch is going to, you're going to pitch 1,000 times probably. Whether you have a tech business or not, you're going to always be talking about your business and pitching your business. And so don't feel like any individual pitch is like a make or break opportunity. It's actually just an opportunity to get a rep in. And the more you get those reps in, the better you'll be at it, the less you'll feel kind of nervy. But I've seen, in my own experience and a lot of the founders that I've mentored over the years, they feel like, this is my one and done chance. And that's never usually the case, like very rarely ever the case. It's actually just an opportunity for you to practice the skill that you're going to be doing 100, maybe 1,000 times. And like Yulia mentioned, you actually have to develop this skill of, pitching for different contexts. You're going to have a pitch deck for, demo day. You're going to have a completely different pitch deck that you share around without your presentation attached to it. And then even the ones that you share around, you're going to have different versions like Yulia was describing. And in a similar way that you do that for your deck, you're going to want to do that for the way you pitch as well, like verbally pitch, depending on the context, depending on who you're talking to. So I think when it comes to fundraising, this is also an opportunity for you to see this as honing that skill. Not just like oh my gosh, I have to pitch this one time. And it's, see it as like a long-term kind of trajectory and skill set that you just want to build as a business owner. Or you love that. And just the iterative nature, like you take the feedback and have conversations, you either, enhance your data room or you can't enhance your deck or you enhance the way that you tell your story. But it is iterative and thinking about it that way will allow us to create a much better story in the long term. I think tacking on to the previous question, and maybe I open this up to those who want to answer it, but are there specific resources that you use to teach yourself about the fundraising process? I think it's a different process for each individual that kind of goes into it. But are there resources that you would maybe suggest to entrepreneurs so that they can basically teach themselves about what to expect in the process? I think that's the importance of having people that you really trust that have been through it, not just in the a big forum where you can listen to someone on a panel, but like truly like someone that you could call when you get that term sheet and you want to know whether or not you should push back. An example from my own like personal experience. So we did our angel round. We had like, 6 angels at the table. We were really excited. We'd agreed on evaluation and everything. And then one angel came back to us and was like, I think the valuation's a little lofty. I would love to rethink that. And so that sent me and my co-founder into a tailspin. We're like, oh my gosh, we're so aggressive. We think we're worth something and we're not. And I was on speakerphone with her just in my house. My husband works in venture in clean tech, so he could never give me money, unfortunately. And he heard me on speakerphone hashing this out with my co-founder. I came downstairs and was like, what the heck are you talking about? And I was like, oh, we're going to bring it down our valuation because one of our angels thinks that it's a bit lofty. He's like, sorry, you have 6 angels. And one of them told you it seems a bit high and you're going to rethink your entire strategy. I'm like, yeah, of course. And he's like, no, you're not. And he basically then told us, like, do not do that. Just say, hey, this is the number. If you're in, we'd love to have you. And so we went back into that. We almost had our valuation in hand because we were in the point of like high anxiety, highly emotional. It's hard to have an objective viewpoint of what you're even doing every day. And if I didn't have someone I trusted come in and saying, no, you're worth this much, we would have just like haircut ourselves that day for truly no reason. Obviously, the angel came in at the valuation and it was no problem. And she's one of our biggest supporters. So you need to have people that are on your side that can help you have that confidence in the down.
Yeah, so wonderful story along this because, I guess a lot of founders face this. Well, I read a book that really helped me to figure out a lot of the stuff with the term sheets and with the legal aspects of the deal itself. Its name is Vinci Deals, and it is smarter than the lawyer and the investor, something like that. So yeah. So it's a great one. So don't read it in advance; it's not helpful. Just read it before you're closing or in the middle of fundraising. And supportive system, like access to advisors and mentors is extremely helpful. That's the best source of information support. And then accelerators where we are now. YSpace, Treefrog. In our case, Treefrog was the first ecosystem player who opened a lot of doors for us, and where we found a lot of resources and people. So, Lori, thank you so much for everything you do to get to you at Treefrog. So, yeah, I guess, and the different workshops, I guess you will find a lot of them out there. So, be a part of them, learn from each other, and also the network with entrepreneurs is extremely helpful. And the best intros I've ever received to the investors were from the other entrepreneurs. So go out, do networking, talk to people, share your experience. That would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, with what was said. Founders, these community spaces. I also we started our journey with Treefrog as well, and then migrated to YSpace, did a couple of programs here. We've been with the Black Founders Network as well, Google for Startups Accelerator, do all the accelerators. They all offer different things, but they're also going to open up your network of founders and other folks broader and broader the more you do them. In addition to that, books, another great resource. I also love to go to YouTube, and there's a few really trusted creators that I want to share with you. I took note again because my memory might fail in these critical moments. So one is Slide Bean, Slide Bean, one word. And maybe we could even share this out later, but they share a lot on fundraising and all these different terms, what these terms mean. Another channel that Slidebean actually created as well, if I can find this list, Startup Club by Slidebean. Really recommend that as well. And then, of course, Y Combinator, if you've heard of them, they're one of the best accelerators in the world. Go to their YouTube channel. There's tons of knowledge there just about starting a company and a startup generally. And then some key terms that you should really want to learn about when you're starting to get into this phase is, a safe note versus a safe note versus a convertible note. This is really important in the Canadian context because Canadian investors really like convertible notes. You should not like convertible notes as a founder, and there are really important distinctions that you should learn about. So a safe note versus a convertible note. Within those two vehicles, there are different terms that you should learn about, like a valuation cap, we mentioned. A discount, what is that? Pre-money versus post-money valuation. These are really important terms. There is this concept called a waterfall. Basically, when safe notes convert into equity, sometimes if you don't keep track of how they're going to convert, they can kind of waterfall in a way where you dilute a lot more of your company than expected. So learning about that and how to avoid that. Pro rata rights, how do liquidation preferences work and how do they work differently for common versus preferred shares? How does equity work generally when you issue them to investors or maybe your team? What is dilution? We've talked about, valuations and things like that. Those things are really important because of dilution. What is a data room? What goes in a data room? And how to even model out your dilution in a pro forma cap table. So there's a lot of different terms. Everything that I just mentioned, you can find information about on those three different YouTube channels that I shared. And then, of course, the resources that Suze and Yulia shared as well. Other people who have gone through the process, books that talk about this process. So just try to, be aware of these terms so that when an investor tries to, negotiate, maybe I want pro rata rights when I didn't have pro rata rights initially, you know what those mean and you know whether or not you're okay with that.
And that's also where, like the three of you talked about, having that network to also kind of draw on. Where did you learn about it in your instance? If you have friends that are founders who have raised before, draw on their expertise and their experience to supplement the knowledge that you're building from yourself. Great tips. So now that you've secured funding, so, that's kind of before, now we're going to talk about after. Now that you've secured funding, how has it changed the trajectory of your business and what have you learned post-funding?
Probably one of the biggest lessons we learned the hard way is you spend your capital much faster than using. And so you should really have a stranglehold on your burn rate, just how much you're spending every month and your runway, like how long basically you have until you get to nothing. We first raised around 150,000 from Antler Canada, a VC accelerator, when they first came to Antler Canada. That was in the summer of 2022, and then the market crashed. And so everybody in our cohort assumed that, hey, this money is going to get us until, it's going to last us until maybe a few months, and then we're going to raise more because that's the Antler way. Their stats globally is that you raise a lot on your demo day. That's a few months after they give you their initial fund. That did not happen. Most of us did not raise until the next year. And so we burned through that capital much faster than, with hindsight, I would have. If I knew, money is drying up and we need to make this last as if it's our last dollar, we would have treated that money differently. And so we've raised more money since then. And that lesson has paid dividends, right? Because the way we manage the money that we have now is much more careful. And I would recommend that you treat any money that you get into your company, whether it's dilutive or not dilutive, you treat that as your last dollar, as if you're never going to get capital again. And then also, to ensure that doesn't happen, you start the fundraising process well in advance of that money ending. So you should know your run rate. You should know your how much money you have left in the bank, how many months against you, and then probably and I know this kind of defeats the purpose because when you close a round, you're like, I'm done fundraising. No, not really. You're probably going to start fundraising in another 6 or maybe even 3 months because you want to start 6 or 8 or maybe even 9 months before you run out, right? You really want to restart that process again. So I think that's one of the biggest things. Secondly, money does not get you product market fit. Money does not solve your biggest challenge, which is building a product people actually want and need and will pay you for. And I think that's something that founders sometimes think, the money is actually the biggest problem. No, it's the most tangible. But oftentimes, if you don't build a product that people really want, then you're always going to be seeking out money, and getting that money is going to be harder to do. I have some notes on maybe how to do that, but if we have time later, I can share them. But really try to think about, what you're building and really validate that you're building and solving for a problem people care enough about to pay for.
So They say that the startups have two problems. One is that your startup is growing too slow, and another one, if you're growing too fast. So with extra capital, you will have the second problem. You will be lucky, what is great. At the same time, it will be a tough period because you have delivered a lot of results to your VCs. So at the moment you took the money from the venture capitalists, your main idea is to bring it back with the highest X possible. And that's the driver of your business from that very moment. As soon as you've finished your equity round, from my experience, you have to start raising the next one. Again, it's not about sending the deck to all the investors you know, but it's about to maintain those relationships you have built. Probably in your CRM or in some Excel spreadsheets, you will have the cohort of investors with the tag next round or like later on. So focus on them because they will be your next target group, right? And I also want to touch this balance between investing in product and its sales. Statistics tells us that actually the best product never wins. So probably you would want to invest more in sales and marketing rather than in R&D. And a lot of founders, we're all biased. We all think about our product, how to make it better, how to polish it, and it will be never enough. We will always find people that want your customers who are not satisfied. They will always have they will always want additional features or better functionalities, etc. But you should sell what you have, and that's the mantra. And even start selling from your day one. If you have the idea, you're selling the same day. If you have the POC, you're selling the POC, etc., etc. So after you close your round, continue sales, continue investing in marketing and sales. Try to keep this balance between R&D investments and sales investments.
Yeah, I'd say a double click on that, like the importance of really understanding your sales cycle and how that should tie to your fundraising cycle. So for us, we're in the benefit space. So people only make decisions around benefits about once a year, right? So in order to give ourselves enough runway or enough kicks to the can, really, we had to give ourselves 2 years of runway so that we could have 2 tries at the sales groups that we were pursuing. And I think that everyone's going to build a beautiful model that it has like an X% growth rate month over month, but like in reality, you should probably go like 1 to my buyers 5. And is my raise going to get to that capital moment? But if it's not, cut yourself. Okay. Maybe lays people off. Like make the decision you need to do to get to that milestone.
Great. Thank you so much for those insights. And I think now I'd love to open up to the audience for audience questions. Okay, who's got the first question over here? It's just me. So thank you, like these really awesome insights. I just have a very niche question, just in regards to raising capital south of the border. So I'm actually part of an accelerator in the Bay Area right now, and so far I've bootstrapped, so I haven't had to raise any capital yet. And my question is, like, I'm actually more interested in this accelerator for the networking opportunities aside from the money. The money would be great. My question is, like, if any of you have experience raising south of the border, like, did you have to become like a Delaware C Corp? And if so, what would be your experience with that? Because my understanding is that this accelerated startup, I would have to also now become a Delaware C Corp in addition to Canadian Corp, which obviously introduces a lot more responsibility and stuff like that. So that's just my question to get in serious with that.
It's all about the criteria that the funds have. So they might have on their thesis that they invest on the US based companies. So you have to have that the C Corp or whatever other incorporation in the US. So in my previous case of my ex companies, so we were negotiating with one of the top venture capital firms in Bay Area. Yeah, one of their requirements were to have the US company. So we had to make the transition from Latvia, where my company was incorporated in Europe, to the US to get those money because we really wanted to onboard that investor. So we were highly motivated. On top of that, there are more kind of consequences of that decision. If you have any intellectual property or patents, you have to transfer them, and that's completely different story. It's a long process, etc. So it will greatly affect your business. But if that's what you want to do it. That's the choose motivation to get that money, why them to transfer the company to the US. But again, there are multiple funds in the US who invest in European companies, Canadian companies, so they do not have this requirement. So it's case by case. It depends on what criteria fund has.
Yeah, I'd say definitely look at like the three pieces. You're looking at capital, signals, and talent, right? So where are your customers, where are your investors, and where do you want your people? And if it's not anchored to the US, then you don't necessarily need to be moving it over just for the investor. Investors, especially in the US, are sophisticated enough to be able to also invest in Canada. It's not very complicated to invest here. And they have an understanding that with sort of like shed credits and grants and everything, their money will go farther if it's a Canadian appropriated business. And the other thing to note is like Delaware C Corps, there's like starting to go out of vote a little bit because there was, I don't know, like some legal issues in Delaware where felt like the courts weren't as being as unbiased as they had a reputation to be. So even within the US, it's not even clear if that's going to be the going standard forever. So I think really like unless the investor is being extremely like if they're being really on it, ask them why they're being firm on it. And if you have reasons related to customers and talent that are outside of the US, then like don't anchor yourself to it.
Yeah, I won't add too much because I think that's really good advice from both of you. I think just to emphasize, it's okay to have conversations and to ask, why do you feel this way? Are you able to negotiate? Because we feel like the repercussions for us might outweigh some of the nearer term benefits, or it might just create a lot more risk than we're able to navigate right now. They should be on your side, right? They shouldn't try to do or force you to do anything that would undermine your ability to continue your business. So I think just having a frank conversation with them to understand their perspective and help them understand yours can help you navigate the terrain. But I definitely agree with, both of the handles.
When I was a dad on the idea of like, if you don't need to raise right now, like don't raise right now. Absolutely push it off. Like if you feel like you have the flexibility to push it off a few months, we are still in like the edge of the steeplater. Like I think tides are starting to turn, but slow. Like I think even where we are this fall versus where we're going to be next spring, I don't know, I'm not like an economist, but like I truly think that we're on the way up where the valuations you're getting, the standards, and your traction will be totally different. And I look back at the company we were 6 months ago, and I like cringe, and it like hurts my heart so much that we like went and pitched investors with that story. You'll be so much more proud of yourself in 6 months.
Hi. First of all, I just want to thank you. You're amazing, and well, anyway, it's amazing. And I have a question. You keep talking about angel investors. Now, I'm new to Canada. I know that normally angel investment come through knowing you personally. And so I'm curious if you can just give some tips to how you make those angel investors, how one can expedite process of actually getting to talk to them in a way that you have a strong chance of getting money on that.
Really great question. So I think in Canada, there's actually also a threshold for high net worth individuals that don't know you personally to invest. I believe it's around 200 or 250,000 in net worth. They define it pretty clearly on, like, if you Google this, you'll be able to find a website that'll tell you this. So that is an option, and that was an option that we kind of went through as well. So through networking, through actually pitching the product to who we thought was a potential customer, and because they were a potential customer, it makes them a really good investor as well. They happened to be high net worth and interested in investing in tech. They had experience investing in startups as well. So we just kind of like lightning struck in that way a couple of times with our angels. But I think the way that we got there was through networking and through talking to the right people, people who you think would be good customers, or people just even in the ecosystem. We also had angel investors that we met through the accelerators that we've been through, right? So it's really important just to surround yourself in this ecosystem and meet as many people as you can. But there is that exemption where you don't necessarily need to know the person for personally. They can also just be a high net worth individual.
Yeah, I think we're lucky, honestly, to be in the GTA, where, like, despite the fact that a couple of our angels came through, like, personal networks, almost none of them were actually friends or family. We told our friends, family thinks that no thanks. Your $2,000 check is not going to make the difference in our business, and it's going to be giving a lot of anxiety. So we could only among with people that were, like, second degree co-worker kind of connections that way. And then, yeah, we built out our network really through events. Like we're lucky in Toronto, you can go to Elevate, you can go to SAS North in Ottawa. There's some good cohorts there of like early stage investors. And I think this really comes back to this point around like ask for advice and you'll get money. That's the time when you go and say like, I love your perspective. I'm so interested in learning about the industry from you. And then they suddenly open up pockets. Sorry, I'm so flash.
Yeah, well, speaking about business angels, so what we figured out here in Canada, so there are wonderful business angels group communities, and we are constantly pushing that. As Sue says, we are happy to be at HNTA. We have plenty of business angels groups. And as far as I remember, they're all at on Dealum platform, so it's quite easy to create the profile. At the same time, we haven't raised yet from them, but we have raised the smaller checks from individuals, from the business angels who act as individuals, and then ex-CTOs of some huge corporations here, or the ex-executives of some financial groups. So they have a lot of experience to understand how venture capital or business angel checks work. At the same time, they have trust in what we're building, and they all came to us as friends of our friends. Actually, what we did in the very beginning of our journey, early spring this year, is we just invited everyone we know, like our friends, family, people we know, to the bar, and we said, okay, now we wanted to tell you what we are up to. And we kind of pitched, that was our very first pitch. And that's how we collected the very first money, because those group of folks, they have a lot of trust in us as persons. And we said, okay, guys, we trust you. We know that you're professionals. We wanted to support you. Just let us spread the word about you. And that's how we met wonderful people who finally became our business angels.
Yeah, but I would add one more thought on the idea of the angel syndicates across Canada. Oh, they're challenging. They have very, very long processes. Same kind of thing where they expect really like far along traction, where you're like, I don't really see how it'd be feasible for it to get to that size of a business at the stage that we're at. And I think that it, like, you have to just be cautious on how much time you're staying there. We had way more with an individuals that was passionate about what we're doing, versus the syndicate that had a process that like no startup can honestly fit into that type of spin length.
Yeah, and there's just one more resource I want to share about angel investment. If you do find a few, like several angels, Canadian specifically, and you want to accept checks from them, sometimes it might be more strategic for your business for you to create an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. It's basically an entity that is created to invest in your company, to basically take their investment and invest it in your company, totally above board. This is a normal practice, especially across other industries. There is a platform we used for this process called Equivesto. They're a local company. They know many people in the space, like the folks at Treefrog. I would highly recommend them. We created an SPV, and the main thing here is that when you accept individual checks from, let's say, 6 different angels, they all become kind of a seat on your cap table. They all become individual shareholders. And when those safe notes convert into shares, you need to basically go to them for different administrative decisions in your company, and you need to get signatures from each person. And then there's also like regulations around how many shareholders you can have before you start experiencing some regulation and take like extra regulation and compliance. So an SPV basically makes it so that all of those people are represented by one seat on your cap table. They're represented as one shareholder, which makes the process a lot easier to manage in the long run.
Yeah, you can only have 50 hits to your cap tables, and you lose your lifetime capital gains exemption, which is critical.
Yeah.
So we had an unsolicited offer a few months ago, and I think you need to really like sit back and think, are you for sale or are they buying? And those are 2 different questions, and that's how you're going to run the conversation. If you're for sale, you should have a number in your head that you're trying to achieve, and you're thinking, who could help you get to that number? If they are buying, they need to come to you with a number. And the best way to position yourself for success in this negotiation, if it's even worth having a negotiation, is to be like, hey, happy to have a conversation. Would love for you to take the lead on how you're actually thinking about the valuation, the way you approach this acquisition. After you can wrap your hands around the conversation of like the number, that, as I said, like I think that if they are making an offer to buy, it's their responsibility to come to with a number that makes sense for them. Don't put yourself up for sale because you might shortchange yourself. But then second, you really need to understand the deal structure. This sounds like not the cleanest like cash acquisition. It's like they want to help you grow over 10 years. That makes me think it would be like a long-term like share or cash earnout situation where even if they say, yeah, we're going to offer you $5 million for your business today, that $5 million is actually structured as like an earnout that takes 15 years to earn and you have a 20% chance of actually getting it. That's where you have to be really careful. So all cash up front is great.
Yeah, really great strategic advice. I think the only thing I would add is definitely seek counsel. There's a few law firms I can think of in the Toronto area that specifically coach startups and tech companies through this process. So they'll understand, what's maybe the norm and what's maybe not the norm. They can help you understand the different parts of due diligence and organize those documents. Also, there's a process of like validating that those documents and those claims that you make as a company are valid and accurate. So definitely I'm seeking some legal support. Once you have had the conversation that Suze just described and you feel like you're definitely going to go through with this, then definitely have some legal support on your side to make sure that you understand everything going on in the process and you can, provide all the documents, stuff that you need.
Good.
Leona?
Yeah, well, probably just 5 cents from my side. There is an opinion on the market. I don't know if that's like right, but I heard it multiple times. If there's someone to buy, you go and sell. I don't know. So maybe that's the right opinion, but there is an opinion on the market. At the same time, if you're investors backed, you should think about their interests. So you should sit down with them and think about what are their expectations. Because it's not just you in the boat, right? There are your founders of your company and investors. So everyone should benefit from this deal. So it should serve everyone's interests. And as Tanika mentioned, there are multiple firms, and there are firms who are specialized. They have the specialized departments to work with the high-tech startups like Osler or Foskin and other law firms, and they will be definitely close help.
Good luck. That's cool.
Nice to have problems. I guess over into app. Yeah. And with that, we've come to the end of the discussion portion of the event. I just want to thank you, Tanika, Suze, and Yulia for your incredible insights into the fundraising process and for sharing your stories. As I mentioned, it's an incredible group of women entrepreneurs who have, again, democratized access to information and resources for their users that, wouldn't have existed had you not kind of gone down this path that we know it's challenging, but we know it's so rewarding based on what you described. Thank you to everybody for attending. I want to thank York Region, first of all, for funding the Jumpstart program, for being strategic partners with us in helping women in tech in particular. I also want to thank the Schulich School of Business and Treefrog for partnering with us on this incredible program. We get to work with such amazing women entrepreneurs out of York Region and the GTA. And I also want to thank the Small Business Enterprise Centers in the York Region because they've been incredible partners over the last 5 years. And, we can't do what we do without the amazing partners that we have. And I want to thank you for making it out to Markham this morning and being here. And I hope that you'll take the next half hour to have discussions with the people in this room and to get to know each other a little bit better. I invite you to have some more food, coffee, tea, water, whatever. And thank you again for joining us today.